Okay, in this one we're going to make some simple eyes. Now, there are much more elaborate ways to make eyes for a character, but for the proximity that we're going to be to this character, making truly elaborate eyes is really not worth our time. So we're going to make relatively simple eyes that will have a nice texture map and end up looking just fine for the distance we're going to be viewing the character from. So as we look around, we'll try to get this in pretty good position. Let's go into object properties, make it transparent. And then as we center it, we're going to look at our object properties to adjust the number of segments on here. So we end up with a set of edges that's pretty close to that iris. So as we move this around, that's pretty close to where the iris is. Now, the sphere itself really needs to be a little bit closer to the center line here. And it needs to be physically a little bit larger. We increase the size of that till it fits in there pretty well. And then we'll rotate it without angle snap turned on. So, but no matter what, we're going to have a couple areas of the eye here, right? Where right now, the lower part of the eye is passing through the lower eyelid, and it still doesn't quite meet up with the corner of the eye there and the corner of the eye there. So it's close, but the surface of the face is going to have to be modified a bit to fit around it. So we can keep our Turbo Smooth visible, but as we grab an area of the mesh here, we're going to up the fall off distance on our soft selection just a bit. We'll make this full screen. And as we move this around here, we're looking to try to make sure that the surface of the face actually fits the eye. It wouldn't really be the best idea to try to force the eye to fit into the face. The eye needs to be spherical in nature if we're ever going to rotate it. Because if it's not spherical in nature, when we go to rotate the eye around, we're going to end up kind of making the eye leave the surface of the face, which in the long run wouldn't really be the best way to go. So we just want to manipulate the face to fit the eyeball. Now, we don't want to move this part too far back because normally there is another little piece of skin, a little piece of tissue. It's actually a little bit of muscle. It sits right behind the corner of the eye there. So, we'll get the skin fit around the eyeball. And then we'll go back and adjust and add in that little piece of meat in there. All right. That looks like that fits around there pretty well. So then the eye itself can simply get a UVW map that's projected planar from the front. So you can see here, there's the top edge of the gizmo. The gizmo is just passing straight through the object. Now we're going to go to our material editor. We're going to create a new standard material. The gradient ramp, we're going to wire into our diffuse color. Then we're going to double click it so we can see what's going on. For a gradient type, we want radial. So we're going to make a radial gradient on the surface of this object so that we have control over making something that appears to be an eye. We're going to change the color. Well, let's give our fairy purple eyes. We're going to grab another one in there. We're going to give this another dark purple, even darker at the edge there. And then from the white, we're going to drag another color swatch down. Let's make this a little bit brighter. See our dark edge there. And then we'll grab another one, bring it down. The closer we have these little color swatch selectors together, the more defined our pattern is going to be. We'll move this out of our way a bit so that we can apply our color to our eyeball. It's on there, but we can't see it yet. So with that part selected, we're going to turn on Show in Viewport. Got to select the eye, go to Object Properties, make sure it's not see-through. Otherwise, we can't see anything. All right, so now with that on there, the iris color is a little bit big and the pupil's a little bit small. We'll drag this down a bit. Take a look. Well, the pupil's okay. The pupil's too small, so we got to bring that up a bit. Make that a little bit bigger. That looks pretty good there. And we'll drag these three down just a touch more. Almost. It's pretty close. We'll go down just a little bit more with that. That looks pretty good right there. All right, so we'll close that. Then as we back up, take a look. Yeah, it looks pretty good in there. Now, again, since we're not going to even be this close in the final renders, this should work out just fine. In this view, though, both the pupil and the iris seem a bit big, so we'll open the material editor back up, and we'll continue to adjust a bit more. Now, generally speaking, your iris hits the bottom eyelid and the pupil hits the top eyelid. She's a bit wide-eyed, but we're okay with that. So we can make the pupil just a bit bigger. We'll make the iris a bit smaller. And that ought to work. All right, so let's close that up. Let's back out a bit more again and take a look. That works. It's a touch more realistic. Then we're going to go back in here to the main level of the material. We're going to add some specular and some gloss. So we want pretty bright highlights and pretty tight highlights. So by increasing the specular level, we'll make the highlights brighter. By increasing the glossiness, we'll make the highlight tighter. And then we're going to go into maps, and under reflection, we're going to add just a bit of a ray trace reflection. Right now it comes in at 100%. I'm going to drop that down to more like 15. So it'll reflect the environment around it, but it won't be a real strong reflection. Now when we render, we get a bit, again, more realism there because we can see highlights on it. Once we have an environment around there, we'll actually see the environment reflected in those eyes. Those are nice, simple eyes.